Welcome back, you beautiful people. Today we're going to continue our look into this Bitcoin dip that we were talking about in the video yesterday. We're going to see if my prediction that I made last night was correct or not. And then we're going to look at previous dips and see if there's anything we can learn from them to inform our strategy going forwards. I'm just going to move this box for a second and then it will come into play later. When we left off yesterday, we were down here below these lines, and I predicted that we would close above these lines and then continue upwards. But whilst we stay above those, and I know we're dipping below, but what matters is what happens over the rest of the day. You see this one here went slightly below, but then went straight back up. If I was going to guess what was going to happen next, I think we come up slightly and close above these lines, and then from that point I would expect us to continue upwards. So we got that right, which is very, very good. These lines prove to be very, very powerful. If you want to learn more about these support and resistance and trend lines, I recommend that you check out Conquer Trading Investing YouTube channel. I'll link to it down below. Especially the Bitcoin playlist, you will learn everything that you need to learn about the Bitcoin cycle in that playlist. I have taken Jordan's course and I couldn't recommend it more. So we came into this line at $31,500 and then we resumed upwards. We went right up to $36,500, which was about 20% advance, which is beautiful. We came back to test the line again, and now we're resuming upwards. That looks very, very healthy. I'm going to put this box back here now. So if we assume that this correction is done, and that would be my assumption at this point, if we do resume back below 30,000 where we came down to before, then we'll have to reassess. But I'm assuming that that dip is now done. Then it was a 28% correction which happened over the space of 4 days. 28% is a really interesting number. Why is it interesting? Because the last Bitcoin cycle that we had in 2017 had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 corrections of 30% or more. If you want to check out this Twitter channel, it's VJ at Real VJ on Twitter. Very, very good channle. So our base case going into this cycle was that we were going to have 30% pullbacks, and that's what we were looking for as we got started. If we zoom out a second, that's in, let's zoom out. This looks a bit messy, but if we zoom in, you will see this is the previous cycle, minus 38%, minus 33%, minus 33%, minus 33%, minus 40%. So that we were expecting something similar. Now, what played out was, whilst we were expecting 30% pullbacks, actually the first one that we had here was only 20%. We then had another 20% here, and we had only a 17% pullback here. So it was looking like our thesis of 30% pullbacks during this bull cycle was potentially going to be invalidated. And then the market comes along and does what the market does, which is to always surprise you. That's what keeps it interesting. It's never going to be easy. So we were looking for 20% pullbacks. We actually did get our first, let's call it 30% pullback. Now, some people have been reaching out to me or mentioning to me that they either tried to time this pullback and sell at the top and buy back at the bottom, or that they're planning to do that in the future, and asking me if that's something that I would recommend. The simple answer to that is no. And the reason for that is as follows. we can no longer be certain that we're going to have consistent 30% pullbacks, because that's what the market has shown us: 20%, 20%, 17%, 30%. When we thought we were having 30 to 40% pullbacks, then it was perhaps a reasonable strategy to try and take some profits at some key levels and then buy back in later. However, given that we're getting much smaller pullbacks generally, that's not to say that that's going to continue going forwards, but at the moment, and also given that they're happening so quickly. So look, this lasted 4 days, this lasted 3 days, that one was 3 weeks, but that one was 3 days. Then these are very hard to, almost impossible to trade. And I know a few people have tried to do this, and I know a few people that did it successfully, but I would urge you to think about going forwards if you think that's going to be a winning strategy. That's not the strategy that I'm taking. And the reason for that is, if you don't get it almost exactly right, then you are putting yourself in big danger of missing out. What can easily happen is, even if you try to time the top, and to show you how hard that is, this blue box that I have here, which I'm going to remove after this, I was using an estimate that we go up 140% between pullbacks, because it happened here and it also happened over here. We had 144%, 70%, 190%, 170%. So it's not consistent, but I was seeing if we were going to get 140% increase to the next pullback. And you can see that if I had have started selling around $39,000, for a start, I would have missed out on 8% gains. Now, that's not terrible, but bear in mind that it's almost impossible to get the very bottom. So maybe I would have been able to buy back around here. Well, I would have made about 14%, which is not to be sniffed at. That's, you know, that's a reasonable return to make. However, my reward therefore is potentially, let's say, 15% maximum if I get it right. Let's say 20% maximum if I get it absolutely spot on, which world-class traders who have been doing it for 30 years struggle to do. So my upside is 20%. Well, if I sell here in anticipation of that happening, for example, I wake up the next day and Facebook or Google have announced that they're buying Bitcoin, Bitcoin probably goes to $100,000 overnight. So my potential return is 20%, but my risk is unlimited. It could double whilst I'm asleep, and then I may not be able to get back in, and it quickly doubles again. And I'm very quickly missing out on some very important gains. And as we move forward to this year, in this fourth year of the Bitcoin cycle, then we have to be ready for extreme volatility on the downside and the upside. And for that reason, trying to time the market is almost impossible. If you do go for it, then let me know. I'd love to hear about the successes and the failures. And my recommendation is that you are buying whenever you have any cash on the sidelines, and then you're holding. You're holding because Bitcoin's going to $296,000, and that's an incredible return. And you don't want to miss out on any of those returns if you possibly can. So what do we think comes next? Well, if we just head back to here, you can see that after every pullback, then we had quite a sharp increase in the price right up to the very top. Again, that happens at every juncture. Every time we pull back, then we expect to make the next leg higher. You can see that we've held our trend line here, which is beautiful. So I would very much expect for our next move to be coming up here. We'll start looking at price targets next, but I expect us to quickly take out the all-time high of 41,000 and start pushing over $50,000. For those that have had a little panic on because it's their first pullback, just know that we've all been there. We all have that anxiety-inducing experience. I found this chart today, which is very pretty. I don't use it myself, but I found what was very interesting is what this person, Eric Wall, was showing. What we just experienced is this little line here. It may have seemed a lot more yesterday and the day before. It's a tiny blip, and it's a tiny blip that we absolutely need so that we can make the next leg up. Bear in mind that we literally went back down to the levels we were at on the 5th of January, so just literally 1 week ago. And if you have been invested in Bitcoin for even a short amount of time, then you are well into profit. And I found this meme to be very funny. We all still get a little bit anxious when we see it happening, but if you've been in Bitcoin for even not very long, then you can, it's only eating into your paper profits, and potentially you can wipe your tears away with those profits. For those people that were buying at $40,000 plus, I've had 3 or 4 messages. Well done for holding. Like I said in the video yesterday, the only mistake that you can make during a dip is to sell. And I'm sure you're already seeing from the price, all you need to do is hold. We're already 8%. No, we are a lot more than that. We're already 15% up from the bottom, and I expect us to make the rest. Even if you bought at the very top, I don't think it will be very long before you're into profit. So if that was your first dip, then congratulations for making it through. It's really good experience, because now when we head up to, let's say, $100,000 and we have our 30% dip to $70,000, they're not my predictions, but it's just an example, then you are ready and prepared to be able to handle that. And you'll know what's coming, you'll know to hold, and you'll know if you have the cash ready that you should be buying on those sorts of 20 to 30% dips. Finally, a couple of people have mentioned that they were struggling with Coinbase yesterday and the day before. This is a known issue with Coinbase. It's a massive pain. It always tends to go down at the very worst inconvenient times when you want to buy or sell the most. My only recommendation is Binance. I think Binance seems to be a lot more stable, seems to have more uptime during those very, very critical times where you want to get in and do something. Coinbase has its place, so maybe you can continue to use both, but I definitely recommend that you check out Binance, and my referral link is in the description below. Thank you so much for listening. Please like and subscribe, and well done for making it through this dip alive. We're not quite out of the woods yet, but I expect us to be in a couple of days, and then we can start talking about price targets and profits and upside. Take care. Bye-bye.